Hello, everyone. How are you doing this week? I hope fine. You ready for week 8 stuff? I hope so. So today we're going to get on the creative writing side. We're going to do getting ideas, where you get ideas all over the place. And then we're going to do, for the poetry side, we're going to do poetic forms. There's some different forms or styles of poetry. Okay. So that's what we'll be getting into today. And this lesson is scheduled for you to get this on Monday, November the 28th. Okay, November the 28th. Hopefully you had a great Thanksgiving. You ate a lot of turkey, mashed potatoes, and had some pumpkin pie. Okay. All right, so let me do what I usually do here. Share the screen. Go to the material. Downsize this thing for me. Goodbye. Okay. This thing has to clear. It doesn't want to clear. Let's see if I can hit the beginning already. Yay, good job. Okay, so ENG 102, creative writing / poetry. Week 8 again, scheduled for 11/28, November 28th. So the next lesson, we shall be in December already, and hopefully you'll be buying your Christmas trees, because traditionally you're supposed to put the Christmas tree up the day after Thanksgiving, but I know people are all involved in the Black Friday shopping, so I hope that wasn't too wild for you. Okay, like I said, getting ideas. So let me show you the many places where we can get ideas. Every piece of writing begins with the generation of an exciting idea. That means the generation, it means inside your head. It's cooking, right? The idea is cooking inside your head. It's what sends you racing to your desk and sets your fingers racing across the keyboard, right? So fast. What is your idea going to be? What story will you tell? Again, this is if you really, I mean, they're not joking here, you know. If you really like writing, then you will be like this, no matter what it is. You know, like I told you before, like on songwriting, you know, you had people like the Beatles and they're fooling around at a coffee shop and all of a sudden they get an idea and they're panicking. They're trying to make sure they get a napkin and then a pen. But if you're at home and you're trying to get ideas to write something, then you're going to be by your keyboard and you will run there. Okay. So like I told you before, ideas are everywhere. Story ideas are everywhere, but you need to find one that truly interests you and that's worth writing about. And that's very important. A lot of young beginning writers, they just get a silly idea in their head and they want to write about that. But is it worth writing about? They usually run out of material in the beginning part of writing and they realize how silly it is. So they can't add any depth to the writing. So you have to truly think about it. You know, is this idea worth writing about? Oh, but I had an idea about a man sneezing 2 times. Well, how much are you going to write about a man sneezing 2 times? You know, unless the first sneeze lasted an hour or something, or broke a record, which is virtually impossible. So think about that. If you don't already have an idea that you want to run with or go with or write about, it's a slang term there. This section provides numerous ways to help you uncover a compelling idea. There's compelling again, makes you want to read it, that you can shape into an engaging story. Engaging means you hook them in from the start all the way through the middle and the end. I remember I used to know some guy, he used to talk. I would say, I want to talk to you. And I'd start talking to him. He'd say, I'm engaged now. You know, okay. Hope that doesn't mean you're getting married. Continuing on the bottom, and guess what? Coming up with that idea is probably not as hard as you think. And guess what else? The best ideas are often the simplest. That's why we have that term KISS. Keep it simple, right? And 9 times out of 10, the best things come from simple ideas. It's really amazing, but it's true. So don't be like a lot of folks that think, no, I'm not going to start writing until I get the craziest idea in my head. 'Cause I want to make a very interesting story, but that's usually not the way it goes for successful writing. Okay. So it's just a neat fact. Again, some just extra stuff that you might not think about. Ideas can be found in memories, observations, experiences, encounters, conversations, activities, sensory details, moods and emotions, books and other media, objects, scenery, relationships, weather, fantasy, history, just about anything. So we talk about observations. I don't know if you know that Sylvester Stallone based the Rocky story on watching Muhammad Ali fight, where he gave a chance to, the lowest ranked fighter that he could, just to say, hey, I'm going to give a chance. It's the American way. And he molded that into the Rocky. It's the same thing, right? So your ideas can be gotten from anything. This is important. There is no right way or wrong way to look for an idea. It's good. Different authors use different methods, some spontaneous, which means right now, boom, like fireworks going off. Some are very methodical, which means step by step, planning each small step before the next. There are probably as many approaches as there are creative writers, so that lets you know that there's different styles and different kind of creative writers. Um, there are also many, many sources. Be open to everything. Don't disregard anything. You'll discover what works best for you by trying lots of approaches and investigating many different possibilities. And you'll probably discover that you come up with so many good ideas that you have dozens to choose from and dozens to store away for future projects. It's pretty cool. Now we're going to go to the media. You're going to see that the media, with all the stuff that they throw out there, they can help you a lot in your writing. Magazines, newspapers, radio, TV, letters to the editor, and movies. These sources are gifts. It's gifts to you. Other writers are out there providing you with all sorts of material that you can use to inspire ideas, just like what I told you. As you know already, reading extensively can teach you a great deal about writing, as you get an increased feel for structure, dialogue, character, and plot. It can also give you the seeds for stories, which you then develop according to your own imagination. So read widely. Don't just look at the front page of the paper for dramatic ideas. Look at the business section, the stock market. Could be an exciting focus to wrap a story around. Look at what the different columnists have to say. A humorous piece could remind you of a crazy situation you experienced, which could be the starting point for a collection of anecdotes. Or people say anecdotes, depends what side of the country you come on. There's tomato, there's tomato, potato, and potato. Read the editorial page, the travel section, and even the comics. The sports page, the pets page. Every page is a possible treasure trove or treasure chest of great ideas. Ditto, which means the same, for magazines, TV and radio shows, plays, improvisational games, and movies. a photograph, a quote, a piece of dialogue, a funny phrase, a character's mannerism, or an emotion he's experiencing. An announcer's accent, a sound, or a color could click with your imagination and turn magically into a story idea. I bet you didn't think about all these little things, right? Giving you ideas. That's what I'm here for, to teach you these things. Oh, yeah. Artistic sources. Artistic sources include photographs, family albums, home movies, book and magazine illustrations, sculpture and paintings. Pictures can inspire well more than 1,000 words. Often looking at something beautiful or unusual or colorful or even frightening or ugly, oh my God, can result in another picture or idea appearing in your mind. Again, as with media sources, be open to everything. Colors, textures, moods, emotions, memories, associations, settings, and sensation. You get a weird sensation from touching a freezer for the first time. It's so cold, it's hard to describe. Okay, a little EFAC down here again. Be careful not to let your creative resources get pushed to the wayside or just basically the side due to work, chores, errands, parenting, etc. So it's trying to say, don't let your responsibilities in life make you neglect your writing time. Please make sure you make time for your writing. In her book, The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron encourages writers to take themselves on artist dates. Oh, what are these? Where you can spend a couple hours a week dedicated to nurturing creativity. So I guess that's a date with not only yourself, but your artistic side. As she explains, a trip to a museum, an old movie, an aquarium, or an old junk store can be just the thing you need to replenish or refill the well, meaning the well not of water, but of ideas in your mind, right? That's the ticket. Daily life. You may think that going to the grocery store or working in a bank doesn't lend itself to exciting ideas, but that needn't be the case. If you set your creative switch to on, you'll be surprised at the possibilities. Working in a bank could be the source of a great nonfiction book. What I just lost. Okay, for children. What happens to your memory when you put it in the bank? Okay, they're switching that for money. Or a trip to the supermarket with kids in tow, that means with you, could lead to a magazine article entitled 10 Secrets to Shopping with Children, or How Not to Commit Murder in Front of the Mushrooms. It's pretty funny. I guess you'd have to have, well, I don't have kids, but I know what it is to run around kids. I've taken care of families' kids before. Overhearing a conversation between an elderly man and a post office clerk. Yes, it says you are encouraged to eavesdrop. It's when you listen to someone else's conversation, which you're not supposed to, shamelessly, because you're in search of ideas, right? You're not doing that to be nosy. Might offer up the name of a small town that makes you suddenly think of a story you want to set there. Think about the places and the people you interact with on a regular basis. If you take a look at ordinary events with an eye out for stories, you'll see everyday life in a whole new light. Okay? Which is good. Okay, you ready to progress here? Okay, this is what we mentioned earlier. Beautiful, horrible, and unusual settings. Your imagination can be set on fire when your eyes take in a variety of sights. Sit beside a fountain. Look at a burned out building or forested area. Go to the park or lake. Watch an old house being bulldozed. Look at photos of favorite vacations or landscape paintings, or take a trip to a botanical garden. Try to observe as many and as varied outdoor settings as you can. Look not only at colors and textures, but think about how the setting makes you feel. Peaceful, dreamy, aristocratic, horrified. Sink into the feeling and see if one of them helps you formulate an idea. Here are 12 easy to get to spots for idea gathering. Okay? A coffee shop. A lot of people talking there, my friend. A lot of people. A lot of strange people go to coffee shops. You can get some ideas there, that's for sure. You know, quiet garden. Um, Obviously, you're not looking for noise inspiration there, but at beauty, right? The beauty of the flowers, things like that. The airport. A lot of different people coming and going at the airport. A lot of different airlines representing a lot of different countries. The carpool. Okay, so depends. I mean, you might know the people you carpool with, maybe you don't. Like riding the metro. I used to ride the metro twice a day to go to K-Town when I worked 2 shifts, and there was some regular people I never got to know, and there was some strange ones I'm glad I never got to know. So ideas. Your family room. Okay, so I guess you'd look at the photos, maybe certificates, ornaments, things like that. Remember where somebody bought these or they were gifted to you. It can bring up memories. The diner, again, when you go eat like a coffee shop, same thing, but that's your dinner time. The elevator, I don't know how much that could give you an idea. Maybe if it's, they used to have the downtown ones where somebody, there was an actual, I don't want to say, I don't know what the position is. It's not a driver, but there would be a person in there sitting down and asking you, what floor, please? And they would hit the floor for you. Now, if you talk to that guy every day, he might tell you some new cool stories. The park, again, many different people go to the park. Birds, doggies, many things you can come up with. A hotel lobby, another place where there's a big influx of people running around there. And then the hospital, ooh, you know, I don't know, I just, had some surgery on my elbow and came out of the hospital, and I looked down on my feet and there was a big line of blood where somebody had just come in, wasn't too excited seeing that, but you'll get ideas there definitely. Okay, and here's your point, what you have to do. You have to pick what's interesting. The first criterion is whether or not the idea really captures your imagination. So that's the first step. Does it stir your emotions like a drink? Is it something you know you can enjoyably spend a good deal of time working on? Is it something worth writing about? Writers need to be passionate about their subjects, or it's likely the writing will reflect the lack of interest. So you see, if you write about something like, when you're forced to do an assignment or something, you don't really like it, but the teacher says, I'm giving you the idea what you're going to write in the assignment. You can see that there's a lack of passion and excitement. Right? It's just like, you assigned it, I did it, it's finished, here you go. People can critically see your emotion's not into it. Writers need to be passionate about their subjects, or it's likely the writing will reflect a lack of interest again. If an idea doesn't grab you, you should probably put it aside. Or if something about an idea intrigues you, though it doesn't excite you, give it some more thought and try to come up with a slightly different take. It's the idea that you keep thinking about and that doesn't let you go. That's probably a good bet. Okay. I'm not going to read this one because this is a little strange to understand and I don't need to explain it. It's not helpful. Okay. So go down here and pay attention to scope. Second, will the idea generate a work of reasonable size? Is the subject so broad that you'll need to write a 3-volume set to cover it? That's the other way. Is it too much to write about and cover it completely? You might not want to waste your time on that either, you know. It may be taking on too much, and you'll probably want to revise the idea to narrow the focus. On the flip side, which means on the other side, is it too narrow, right? Is it too narrow? That's the ticket. So if it's a compelling idea, will you be able to put enough meat on its bones? Putting together a very rough outline or synopsis will help you determine this. It will help you definitely. To see if your idea will support a good-sized story, try outlining it with cards. Screenwriters and children books authors do this, okay? But it's a good technique for any genre. Okay? Too much work for one or too little. You'll see it because each scene, key scene will be put up with cards. That's for sure. Right. So next you have to consider your audience. Okay. A third point to consider is if the idea involves a topic that a lot of people would be interested in reading about. If you're writing for yourself, any topic that interests you is a good choice. But if you're writing with the goal of being published, you'll probably want to think about ideas that will appeal to a broad spectrum of people. Okay, so again, the more people that are interested in it, the better chance you have of it being appealing. Now, you see this little leaf acts okay. I can go over this one. This is helpful. Keep in mind that if your idea is one that's often the focus of articles or novels or memoirs, it may be difficult to set it in a new light or distinguish it from other stories like that. What they're trying to teach you here is that if you're going to do something like, I'll make it really obvious. A person that wants to redo, a screenplay for Moby Dick, right? That's been done a number of times. So, you have to really look at that and realize, can you really make it so different and appealing that people are going to want to see it? Instead of like I hear a lot of complaints now, like, are they changing the Spider-Man again? It's like, how many different Spider-Men have they had? And how many times can you change it? Now they're going back to the original enemies, the Green Goblin and the Octoman or whatever, it's like, I don't know, there might come to a point where it's like, I think you better stop changing the Spider-Man actors and just leave it alone, So think about those things. Next, check the emotional factor. Is your idea dramatic? Do you see ways to make it compelling? If you're planning to write a piece of fiction, can you envision engaging characters? Is there an issue to be developed? That's another key way. If you have to develop an idea, it's really helpful. A conflict around which the story will advance, because the story does need to advance. Stories need drama and tension to keep readers turning the page. Be sure your idea is filled with possibilities for drawing in an audience. And then run with it. Again, that's a slang term. That means go with it, run with it. Someone says, hey, I have an idea about X, Y, and Z. And your good friend says, run with it, man. Use it, take it, go. Although, what's the old one? Go for it, right? So when you've weeded out or thrown away the not quite ready for primetime ideas, so all your funky ideas that you had before, like I said, writing about a man sneezing 2 times, you throw away all that crap. You sum up or add up and write down in a sentence or two the idea that you've chosen. Finally, check it for appeal, conflict, because conflict really makes a story run like 2 enemies. Focus, is it focus or does it go all over the darn place? You know, the story's supposed to be about hamburgers and halfway through you're talking about hot dogs and then donuts. You've gone out of focus. And the freshness, are the ideas fresh and new? If it makes the grade and sets your mind racing, you've probably got a winner. But don't throw away any worthy contestants, which means if you have some other ones that they're not really bad, but they're not just as good as your best one, don't throw them away. Keep them, store them away for possible future use, because you might be able to add on to them or get new insight in that situation or in your mind. And it's really good if you haven't thrown it away and you've lost the skeleton for that writing, right? Okay. Right, now we're on to the poetry part of our lesson here. Okay. So poetic forms, I told you there's a number of different poetic forms. So let's get into discovering these. Poetry can take a number of poetic forms. Some forms are long and some short. Some follow rules and others are free flowing. Though poems can take many shapes, there are 4 main categories under which all poems can be classified: narrative, lyric, open form, and closed form. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Sometimes it's helpful to remember the number. Studying the forms songs take will also help you in your poetic pursuits. I'm not going to get into songs too much, but they can also be very helpful for you. Okay. Narrative poetry 1, epic and ballad. So we've all heard of ballad, right? A narrative poem, amongst the oldest forms of literature, can be as long as any modern novel. Please don't try to write that long, though. You guys are beginners. I wouldn't touch it. But it can also be relatively short, perhaps contained on a single page. The key requirement of this form is that it must contain a narrative, a story told by a narrator. That's a key thing here. It's to be told by a narrator. You know, when you see those movies and they're showing scenery, you don't see actors, but you hear somebody talking, that's a narrator. The first 2 forms you'll learn about are the epic and the ballad, which originated with pre-literate or semi-literate people. So that means before they could read, or they could read, they couldn't read, and then they read a little. These works were memorized and then performed at celebrations and other gatherings. The epic. The epic is an ancient form that is rarely used nowadays. I can't remember the last time I saw an epic. However, it used to be a popular method of recording history and communicating within societies. Being a narrative, the epic borrows some of the techniques of storytelling, including plot, character, setting, point of view, and so on. So let's get into a couple of little definitions here. Plot, a sequence of events taking place within the narrative. So that's your story. Character, the person whose story is followed throughout the narrative, or the main star, if we were, or protagonist, if we were watching a movie or TV show. Setting, the time and place of the narrative. So when did it happen? It happened in Koreatown 2022. When some students from School of the East robbed the bank and gave the money to orphans. Right? Point of view, the perspective which the narrative is told. So usually when you hear that narrative voice, it's usually from the main actor. So now we're going to get into drama and monologue. Okay, drama and monologue. Like the epic, drama relies on many elements of storytelling, including plot, character, and setting. The characters are usually presented with a problem to be solved, or they may have a conflict among themselves that needs to be dealt with. The purpose of the drama is to see how the characters resolve the issues they face. That is the purpose of the drama. Now we get more into the drama here. Unlike the epic, which is usually performed by one singer, the drama has several actors who perform the role of the characters. The interplay between the characters, often in the form of dialogue, can create many complexities in verse form. So complexities are problems, solutions, you name it. The monologue. Right? The monologue, mono means one, is closely related to the drama. The monologue, though, has one trait that distinguishes it, stands out. While two or more actors perform the drama and the point of view disappears behind the action on the stage, the monologue only involves one speaker. There's a big effect. Robert Browning, 812 to 889. So he lived, is that 75 years? 77. Didn't receive much acclaim for his serious poetry until the end of his life, just like a lot of major artists. They go unknown or unappreciated, then they die, and then people say, who was this artist? This stuff is fantastic. He was better known as the husband of Elizabeth Barrett, the author of The Pied Piper of Hamelin, which I remember they made a movie, and I saw it as a kid. And guy plays a flute dancing through the city, and all the rats follow him and leave the city because they have too many rats. The speaker of the monologue can be addressing an audience, like I said before with the movies, or can simply be speaking within his or her own mind. So it's kind of like they're talking to themselves or listening to their own thinking. You have already opening soliloquy of the Spanish cloister, page 58, which looked at a portion of the same monologue, but we don't have to go back and get into those, okay? Okay, now I'll move on to lyric poetry. The word lyric is derived from the word lyre. an ancient musical instrument used through Europe and the Middle East. So not, hey, you are a liar, but a liar, right? So musical instruments, right? Um, so lyrics were the words written to accompany the music of the lyre, and therefore were originally song. Okay. Nowadays, a lyric poem is considered a short but intense moment of insight set down by the poet. The lyric does not have to contain a narrative. So remember that. It does not have to contain a narrative, though it may. And it does not have to be long, though it may stretch for several lines. But the lyric should focus on an experience that is unique to the vision of the poet. For the sake of discussion, you can classify many, but not all lyric poems by the experiences they contain. Three main categories of lyrics are those that center on an image, those that center on an emotion, and those that center on an argument. So let's go over those again. Three main categories of lyrics are those that center on an image, those that center on an emotion, and those that center on an argument. Okay? Lyric, my arrow here, there we go. Imagery, okay? Imagery. To get an idea of how imagery works in poetry, consider your own face in a mirror. So consider your own face in a mirror. Go get a mirror and look in that mirror. You may see the shape of your head, the fall of your hair, the tone of your skin, the color of your eyes, and so on. But remember that the image you see in the mirror is a reflection. You are actually seeing yourself backwards, not as others see you. Think about that for a minute. Wow. The quality of the glass in the mirror and its reflective materials will also affect the image you see. Distortions of light, shape, and dimension will occur no matter how close or far away you hold the mirror. So this is kind of like getting to the point of what you look like, right? With these various descriptions of your skin color, the color of your eyes, etc., is not really who you are, right? I mean, you could put makeup on and a wig, like from Hollywood, look completely different. But the main point is who you are. And be careful of imagery because, as they say in the bottom, distortions of light, shape, and dimension will occur no matter how close or far away you hold a mirror. Interesting stuff, you know? Okay, now we move on to another form called open form. An open form poem is exactly what it sounds like. You can choose to use or not to use rhyme. You may follow a strict meter or vary your patterns to create different effects. And a lot of people do that, like they mentioned about song. Well, you can do that to give your poem a different feel, right? Line breaks are not regulated by a certain number of feet or syllables and the number of lines in a stanza. If you choose to use stanzas at all, can vary to suit your vision for the poem. The open form also allows you to move the lines around on the page. You can be creative with a poem's appearance and even give it a certain shape on the paper. To help you understand open form poetry, you may want to consider its most widespread form, free verse. I'm not sure if you've heard of free verse before, but it's the most popular and widespread form. Okay, right? So let's get into that. Though some free verse may look like prose, it actually carries more weight per word due to compressed language. Using compressed language is a means of making fewer words to do more. Again, compress. Compress means to squeeze. So it's like if you squeeze a balloon, right, it gets smaller. So what they're saying here is compressed language is, hey, I don't have the luxury of using 5,000 words to create this. I got to do it in 2,000, right? So every word has to have a big meaning and importance because I don't have the luxury of a big variety. Okay, so remember that compression is squeezing. You can use several strategies and tools to create compressed language. So you have to create it also. Some of these tools include denotative and connotative meanings, figures of speech, symbolism, the repetition of key words, structures, images, and ideas, the altering or changing syntax, the way you pronounce things, IPIA, right? And the omission or withholding of words, such as conjunctions, conjunction, junction, what's your function, articles, and prepositions. The aesthetics of a poem or how it looks, see, the way it looks on a page, will also have an immediate effect upon a reader. You should thus be aware of the length of the lines, the line breaks, and indentations, okay? If any, that's where you indent, the old 5 spaces in, start writing. The stanza breaks, if you have any, and the size of the page upon which the poem will appear. Some poets even chose to have the shape of a poem mimic a recognizable image, like a flower or a house, depending on the subject matter. That's pretty interesting. They chose to shape the poem, I guess, again, how it looks on paper, to mimic a recognizable image, like a flower or a house. Hopefully not a hot dog or a burrito. That'll make you hungry. So here goes a bigger alert. In free verse, poets must rely strongly on language to move the energy of a poem from line to line. So you're trying to move it forward, you get through those conflicts, and language can really, really help you. Ending lines with stressed syllables will help to create, so stress, you go, hello, will help you create the energy you need to move your readers through your poem. Generally speaking, nouns and action verbs will always receive stress. In free verse, each line should contain its own image or part of an image to make it distinct, or, you know, you don't want to talk about making it very distinct, very observable, very standoutish. It really stands out, especially like when they mentioned uh, trying to repeat something like Moby Dick, Star Wars or something, that's why they have to do what they call prequels now. It's like, well, we know the first movie was the beginning, and they say, oh, no, no, we have a new technique. It's called the prequel. So we're going to make a movie about what happened before the first movie, which is what I understand they're going to do with Rocky. What else are they going to do? How forward are they going to take it? Okay, so to make each line stand out to the reader, you should create vivid, which is like movie style, alive descriptions to evoke or bring forth specific responses. So you want people to get angry, to cry, to have a happy attack. Careful readers should come away from each line with a sensory impression, with another piece of information to add to their understanding of the poem as a whole. So again, this part, I'll read it again. Careful readers should come away from each line with a sensory impression. So you must feel some kind of sensation. And with another piece of information to add to their understanding of the poem as a whole. So it's kind of like people that say they have a favorite movie, and every time they watch it, they get a new piece of information. They understand a little bit more about the movie that they didn't catch just within the very first attempt. Now we're going to do closed form. Should be opposite of the open free form, right? Closed form poetry dominated the canon, which means the field of poetry, for so many centuries. Can you imagine that? Centuries? How old are you, sir? I'm 3 centuries old. You're 300 years old? Yes, but I'm the baby of the family. Okay. So for so many centuries that many people still think it is the only way to create poetry, right? Anything that's been done for so long a period of time, people think, well, that's the only way you can do it, right? Of course, this is not the case. But if you feel that free verse is too free for you, then you can also try the many closed forms available. You will learn about these forms in depth later in the book. But for now, take a look at the general ways closed form poems may be classified. And this is quite interesting. Sometimes it does work this way. In American society, people are always talking, especially young people, are always talking about, oh, I want this freedom and I want to do whatever I want. And if they've never been told no, if they've never experienced some kind of closed form or discipline or strict measure, they'll never know what they could create in that situation. And it's a different form of feeling for your success, you know? And you can flip this, right? It's like, I'll tell you, like, well, let's put this for business, right? What do you think the biggest reason for business failure is? Okay. It's not that you didn't have enough money, right? Or customers. It's that when a person opens their own business and they've never done it, they don't have the experience, and let's say their personality is like an open form, free verse, they don't know how to put limits on themselves. Their power, their complete power, which is what they were crying for, is their weakness. So let's say they go out and party the night before and their store's supposed to open at 10 a.m. Well, they're the boss. They're not going to get in trouble if they want to sleep in and open it at 1 o'clock. But then they miss the morning customer. right? And then if they want to close it early because somebody wants to party early, they don't keep it as late, and they miss the night customers. And they start developing these habits of I can close when I want and open when I want, and they forget the rules and do what I want, and they lose the business. So here sometimes it might be better to start with closed forms. I mean, just ignore that it's been around for years, just to give you some parameters. And then when you do a free form, you'll have your own little bit, you'll put little closed form on you, but it'll still be mostly open. So anyway, it's just advice. So again, let's look at the general ways closed form poems may be classified. So you've got metered verse. What is that? Poems that fall under a metrical pattern like trochaic tetratometer or dactylic hexameter. Blank verse. A common form of metrical verse is written in iambic pentameter. And aren't you lucky I never went into this stuff with you guys? This is even hard for me to pronounce. So don't worry about it. I give you the most important stuff you need to know. And then rhymed verse. Okay, that's easy to remember. Poems that follow a strict rhyme scheme. Many rhyme verses will follow a strict meter. Banana, Rosanna, Susanna, Hosanna, right? That follows that rhyming, rhyming, rhyming. For some people, that's helpful to use it. Accentual verse. Poems that rely on a number of stressed syllables. These stressed syllables can be alliterated, usually 3 or 4 times per line to form alliterative verse. I didn't go into that either, so don't worry about it. It's too complicated for you in any initial poetry learning. Repeated verse we can get into. Poems that rely on a pattern of repeated words or lines. So whatever you choose. I mean, it's like if you choose sausage, and the man walked down the street and ate a sausage. The policeman picked up his radio and finished his sausage. I mean, I don't know. You can just repeat these things. Syllabics, not syllables, syllabics. Poems that rely on a certain number of syllables in each line or in the poem itself. So it's kind of like the repeated sausage, sausage, sausage. You make sure the words you choose, which can be different, but they each contain, like 3 syllables, 4 syllables. You don't mix and match. Okay? Yeah. So we're done with the poetry information. We did the creative writing. Now let's get on to these questions of love. Yes. You have to love what you do with the writing. Okay? So first we'll start with the creative writing questions, getting ideas. Where can you find story ideas? So whatever you want, whatever Mr. Hong wants to say, inside my shoes. If you find story ideas there, go right ahead. Whatever floats your boat, as they say. 2, what do other writers provide you with? This is the big hint, as you read their material, what information does that help you form your own ideas, right? Maybe I just gave you the answer to question 2. I hope not. 3, what can happen when your eyes take in a variety of sights? What can happen? If you don't remember that, it's in the reading. Go back and you'll see it. To confuse you, I'm actually giving you the key words to finding the answer. 4, what is the first criterion or rule for choosing the right idea? How should you do it? What is the criterion you apply? Say, this is the right idea. What is it? 5, after you choose an idea, what do you check it for? What are the things you check it for? So that you can kind of predict its popularity or success. Okay, next. Poetry questions. Poetic forms. That was this week's theme. 1, what are the 4 main categories under which old poems can be classified? Okay. So look for those 4, and you'll be fine. 2, what is the purpose of drama? What is it? 3, what should lyric poetry focus on? Right? What should it focus on? 4, what is the most widespread form of open poetry? We went over that last towards the end, so that should be fresh in your memory. And our last question for this week, for your assignment that you will receive on November the 28th, 2022. List the easy closed form poetry can be classified. So there's a couple of ways that it can be classified. So find your closed form poetry and it'll show you however it is, 3, 4, 5. We just list them, okay? We shall be fine. All right. So let me hit the stop share. That means my picture will come back. Hey, all right. So enjoy yourself. Hopefully you didn't eat too much turkey. Hopefully everything's okay. And when we see each other again, it will be December, last month of the year. And hopefully you'll have your Christmas tree up by then. Okay. So thank you much. Everybody take care. And see you in December.